International Relations Minister Ronald Lamola is leading a South African delegation to Mpumalanga, and he'll be meeting there with his Mozambican counterparts. Now, this bilateral engagement is about discussing the political upheaval in Mozambique. That country has been plagued by unrest following disputed results of the October the 9th elections. Post-election violence there has affected movement at the Lebombo border post, which we have been reporting on extensively and will continue to do so. Here's Nqobile Madlala with the latest on that story. So we've been talking about the need for diplomatic escalation in this, Nqobile, to be able to answer a number of questions that will ultimately result in the return to normalcy in that country, but also on operations where you are. What's the latest from your vantage point?
Yes, Imana, very important engagement between government, and very importantly so because these are the two governments from the different countries that are currently affected. You will remember that South Africa is the largest producer of chrome, and this affects directly the chrome and the coal industry, with about 53% of chrome that we export through to Maputo city harbour. Now, this unrest within the area of Mozambique affects the country's trade, especially when it comes to those kind of minerals and others really around nickel, cobalt and so on. So this engagement needs to come with a way to basically explain what is the way forward for South African companies that rely on that Maputo harbour, but also for South African companies that have to send their drivers up to Lebombo Bridge and they find themselves in a way open to anything that could happen to them. I want to bring in now my guest to speak to us, of course, about these engagements that have started. Chrispin, just to start off, could you tell us who's here today? We have noticed that a couple of ministers have come in.
Yes, we have the Minister of Defence, Transport, and the Minister for Trade and Industry and Competition, as well as our Border Management Authority, some other senior officials from the security cluster, and of course the delegation is led by Minister Lamola.
Chrispin, it's obviously a very delicate matter, especially because this directly affects us as the largest producer in the world. What does this mean for South Africa, and how important then are the answers that are going to come out here?
Yes, Nqobile, quite correctly that we are affected at a bilateral level. We've seen how trade has been affected. We've seen how this had an economic impact. So it's quite important for this meeting to get to the heart of the logistical issues that are affecting the Rosina Gasa side, so that from our Lebombo side we're able to process as much as possible the people who are coming through, and the cargo and all of the issues that are required to go through customs to be processed as smoothly as possible. But also at the level of the Minister of Foreign Affairs, it is an opportunity to have that level of engagement and consultation with his counterparts around what the dynamics are and how they see it. As we know that the 23rd of December is when we do expect the Constitutional Council to pronounce itself. In fact, they've already made such pronouncements to the media and have informed the Mozambican people why it has taken so long thus far. And we will continue to reiterate our message that the institutions in Mozambique must be given a chance to resolve whatever disputes are in place, to enable them to come to a conclusion of their electoral process. But what's important from this meeting, we look forward to having a consolidated cooperative plan from both sides of government, on the Mozambican side and the South African government, around the logistical challenges that we're currently experiencing as a result of the unrest sometimes in Mozambique.
It's not as easy, though, is it? Because we know from the Mozambican side it's a political struggle or a tussle between the two political parties. And the government of the day is also the one that is currently questioned by the other political party. It's not just as easy to just come to those decisions, right?
Well, on the logistical elements, yes, it's possible because they have the responsibility. So it's a question of how do we cooperate and how do we ensure that we're able to facilitate what we can facilitate from our side, from a security point of view, from ensuring that cargo is able to cross over. So that is a logistical issue and administrative almost in nature. Whereas we speak of the political issues, that's where we say the Constitutional Council must be given space to do its work And we do trust that the Mozambican will believe in the outcome of their own electoral processes. By way of example, Nqobile, here in South Africa, if we had a dispute in an electoral outcome, the IEC would be given the full space to adjudicate whatever disputes there are and come to a decision around those disputes. It's the same in Mozambique. We expect that that process applies itself, and whatever process that their legislation allows them to take up to ensure that they have fully expressed their concerns and their grievances, and they feel that these grievances are fully addressed with, we should encourage that. But what we are completely discouraging is violence, in the same way here at home as well. You know, we wouldn't want someone to burn a library because you don't have water. That type of situation is something that we're dealing with. So we're saying that we would like them to follow their processes to the letter, and thus far there's an indication that those processes are still underway.
And lastly, can we then expect that the minister at some point will have engagement with other countries like China? Because we know that this chrome, most of it is destined to China and Asian countries. Is this engagement only going to be with Mozambique, or later on with those at the end of the deliverance of that chrome?
Well, these engagements are always ongoing, particularly at a trade level, because there are various levels to this trade, right? One of the things that we are looking at as a South African government is actually having a process where we beneficiate this chrome, that it actually leaves South Africa as a finished product, not as in the current form as a raw material. So those discussions are ongoing at various levels. To the extent that this process is hampering trade with other counterparts of the world, these are exactly what this meeting will look at how do we undo these logistical challenges that impede trade.
Chrispin Phiri, thank you very much for speaking to us. Well, Iman, those engagements are happening right behind us. We have seen quite a lot of officials, as he was explaining, Minister of Defence arriving here, various also delegations that are led by the Premier in the province as well, in terms of the MECs as well, that are currently affected. You'll remember that community safety has been also in the forefront in ensuring that there is law enforcement as well on the ground that is assisting at the border. But will it then come up with answers? That's the question, because the 23rd is, yes, around the corner. But can this meeting go ahead without Podemo as well is a big question. But we'll find out more when the minister is done with the engagement with the delegation.